Welcome to the courtroom. Today we will discuss the do's and don'ts of being inside of the courtroom. Oh, sorry, excuse me. No gum allowed. So, when you're getting ready to go into the courtroom, you always want to make sure that you are professionally dressed and respectable. You want to be as professional as possible. And if you have any second thoughts or any second guesses about your appearance, you should just go back to the drawing board because, excuse me, no phones in the courtroom either. Even if you have them on vibrate, it is still a huge distraction to have your phone in the courtroom. As a matter of fact, a lot of times there will be signs posted that say no phones allowed. So you can't text, you can't talk, you can't have your ringer, and it should be on silent inside of your purse or your pocket if you are in the courtroom so that you don't risk distracting the court. Give me just a second to put my belongings down. So now let's walk into the courtroom. When you get inside of the courtroom, you will see a ton of places to sit. Most times you will walk in from the back of the courtroom. And front and center, you'll see the judge's bench. That's where the judge sits. The judge, of course, is who is in charge in this courtroom. And so you always want to make sure you are very respectful of the reverence of the court and of the judge. It's kind of like if you go to church or if you're going to the library or some place that has some sort of reverence. You want to make sure that you are dressed properly and you are in a position to be respectful of the courtroom and the people present. So, front and center, you have the judge's bench. Typically, to the left-hand side of the judge's bench, you will have the court clerk's desk, and the court clerk acts as a reporter who types everything that transpires during the court hearing. So everything that a witness says, everything that the attorneys say, everything that the defendant or the prosecution says, that court reporter, that court clerk is typing everything out in real time so that there is a clear record of everything that transpires in court. Right next to the court reporter, you'll have the bailiff. And the bailiff he'll appear as an officer or a sheriff, and it could be a he or she, male or female, and that is who is keeping the court in order. A lot of times you guys will hear the bailiff say, "All rise, court is now in session." The bailiff will also carry people out that lose control in court. So if ever you see somebody that gets really, really emotional, or maybe their phone rings, like mine just rang, the bailiff is the person that keeps that court in order. They will escort you out if you do anything that disrupts the court. On the opposite side of the judge's bench, to the right-hand side of the judge's bench, is where the witness stand is. And so witnesses will go up to that stand, and there's a microphone on that stand so that everything that witness says is being recorded, and the court reporter is able to type that into the record so that we are fully aware of what the witness testifies under oath on that day. So let me explain the oath process. When you walk up, you have to put your right hand up and you have to affirm that everything you're saying when you're on that witness stand is the whole truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth, because it matters when it comes to the case at hand. So, now that we've discussed the judge's bench and who sits next to the judge, let's move on to the tables in the middle. Typically, you'll have two tables. Of course, every courtroom could appear differently, but for the most part, they follow this standard. One table is designated to the plaintiff and the plaintiff's attorney. The other table is dedicated to the defendant and the defendant's attorney. So let's talk about the defendant. The defendant in a case is the one that has done the wrong, or that has purported to do the wrong. They are the accused party. So if you have a trial that is going on for murder, the defendant is the one that they are accusing of committing the murder. They are the one that has been alleged to do the crime. So the defendant will either have a privately hired attorney that they pay for out of their own money, or they will be assigned a public defender. Raise your hand if you have ever heard of your Fifth Amendment Miranda rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. That is all your Fifth Amendment Miranda right. All of that is included in that Miranda right. And so under that Miranda right, you have the right to an attorney. You do not have to speak without an attorney present. Even if you cannot afford an attorney, if you don't have any money to get an attorney, one will be assigned to you. That is called a public defender. Public defenders are lawyers that work for the state and are paid by the state to defend people that have allegedly committed crimes. And I say allegedly, that's a legal word, that's a legal term of art, because you are never ever guilty until proven guilty. You are innocent until proven guilty. And so the person that has allegedly completed the crime, because they have not been proven guilty, will be assigned a public defender if they cannot afford a private attorney. And that is given to you in your Fifth Amendment Miranda rights, as well as your Sixth Amendment right to counsel. Counsel is another word for attorney. Attorney, lawyer, counsel, those all mean the same thing. So keep that in mind when and if, hopefully you never get in trouble, but even if you have a family member that's in trouble or a friend, just always remember you have the right to remain silent, and you have the right to an attorney who will consult you and talk you through what is best to say and do in your particular situation. It's very important. So at one table, you have the defendant and the defendant's attorney. At the other table, you have the plaintiff and the plaintiff's attorney. So again, if we're talking about a criminal case, the plaintiff's attorney will be the prosecutor. And the plaintiff is typically the victim in a criminal case. So if the defendant is on trial for murder, then the victim is the plaintiff, and the state is representing that victim because the victim, of course, didn't make it through the situation. They passed away from being murdered, allegedly, keep that in mind, by the defendant. So the prosecution is a representative of the state to get to the bottom of the crime. They do all the research, they get all the facts together, they identify the defendant or a list of defendants, whoever they believe has committed this crime, and they bring them to the courtroom and place them on trial or bench trial or whatever the case to try to resolve this issue. So that's who's sitting at this other side of the table, is the parties that are on the other side of the case or situation. So you'll have defendant, whatever his name is. My name is Bria. So let's say Bria Golder versus the state of Indiana. And the state of Indiana is just standing in place of the victim. So that's how that works. And that's who's seated at those two middle tables. Of course, when you go to family court deals with situations of custody for children, or if you have CHINS cases, is what we call them here in Indiana, with the Department of Child Services. Those courtrooms will look a little bit different. Or if you get a traffic ticket, the courtroom for a traffic ticket, if you want to go to court for that and contest that ticket, that courtroom will look a little bit different. A lot more people will be present. There's a lot of more cases, a higher volume of cases that they hear on a day-to-day basis. And so a lot more people will be present in those courtrooms, and the appearance is a little bit less formal. However, the way in which you conduct yourself should still be just as formal, and you should still be just as respectable, because all courtrooms have to be reverenced. Okay, so now that we've discussed the middle tables and where the parties to the case sit, let's move to the back of the courtroom where all the additional seating is present. So all the additional seats, those are for people that come to see the case. So your family and your friends that are there to support you and to hear the merits of the case and what has transpired. Just various guests in the courtroom will sit in the back of the courtroom. That is what that space is designated for. So now that we've talked about seating, you guys should know where everybody sits in the courtroom, and we can move on to conduct. How should we conduct ourselves when we're in a courtroom? Regardless to if we are the attorney in the courtroom, if we are the plaintiff, if we are the defendant, if we are just a guest, how should we conduct ourselves in the courtroom? And I'm going to go back to the number one rule that we discussed with our conflict resolution course, which was what? What is the number one rule? Hopefully at least one person said respect. Respect is the number one rule. You always want to be a respectable person, and you want to show others that you respect them as well. We want to show the judge that we respect the judge in their authority, in all the authority that they have in their own right. We want to make sure that we respect the judge in their house. It's like if you go to somebody's house and you walk in and you start drawing on their walls, or they're trying to talk to you and you're not listening to anything that they say, or you're talking over them, or you just act like you don't care. That's not showing much respect to the person who invited you into their home. And so you want to make sure when you walk into the judge's courtroom that you are very, very respectable of their time, of their energy, of their effort, and of their authority. The number one rule is respect. Respect speaks volumes. Number two, make sure you are on time. Timeliness matters so much. Again, it is a show of respect. When you are on time, that shows that you respect the judge's time, the attorney's time, the other party's time, and the people that are there to see the case. You respect their time. So you want to make sure that you are on time, because all of these things play a role in how you show up for yourself. If you're not on time, it's a distraction to the court hearing. It could delay the process because some judges aren't as lenient as others. So you may show up 5 minutes late and they say, well, this person doesn't respect my time. They obviously don't care about the case, and so we're gonna set this for continuance. I don't have time to wait today. We'll hear it in 2 months from now. So now you've delayed the verdict. You've delayed the possibility of what could have happened that day because you showed up late. No excuse for tardiness is a good excuse. To be early is to be on time. Repeat after me. To be early is to be on time. Always show up early. Showing up an hour early is better than showing up 2 minutes late. So make sure you are on time always. So be respectful, be on time. Always show up to the courtroom prepared for whatever your role is. Whether you are the attorney, or you are the defendant, or the plaintiff, or a witness, you always want to be prepared. You want to go through the case a million times in your head. You want to weigh the outcomes, whether that's good or bad. You want to anticipate what the other side of the story is and will be, so that you are always prepared to argue your side of the facts. If there's certain paperwork that the judge has requested, you want to make sure that that paperwork is printed and ready to go when the judge requests it, so that you can just hand it off to the bailiff and the bailiff can take it to the judge, as opposed to you having to say apologies to the judge because you don't have that paperwork ready. You always want to prepare and anticipate for what you may need the day of the court case so that you are ready to roll. Being prepared shows how serious you are in this court hearing, and it shows the judge that you respect their time, that you are prepared, and that you are ready to go forward with the case. If you're not prepared, again, this is another means to delay the case. So if you don't have the proper paperwork that the judge requested prior to, then we may have to say, okay, well, since I didn't get the paperwork, now we have to wait another 2 weeks until we can get the paperwork and have it notarized and sent through the system so that we can move forward with the case and get a verdict. A verdict is a conclusion as to what the next steps will be. So always make sure you are extremely prepared. And that even comes down to your preparation with laying out your clothing, having everything ironed, making sure everything looks nice, putting the date in your calendar, setting multiple alarms if you need to wake up on time so that you can make it there on time. Just always, always, always be prepared for everything. And a lot of these tips I'm giving you for the courtroom apply to your personal life as well. So if you're trying to get an interview or a job, or let's say you're getting ready to go to college and you have an interview with a college or a professor, you just always want to make sure that you are overly prepared for these situations, because again, it shows people how serious you are and they give you that same respect and seriousness in return. They'll say, okay, she or he, they're not playing about their business, and so I'm going to take them seriously too and make sure I get this done for them. You always want to show up for yourself and show up for others, because in return, they'll show up for you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to dress in the courtroom. And a lot of things that you may think are acceptable actually are not. So that's why it's so important to discuss business etiquette, professional etiquette, and how to dress in the courtroom. Even what I have on today is okay, but it's not business professional as business professional gets, if that makes any sense to you. It's more so kind of business casual. So we want to make sure we are as professional as we can possibly be. So we're going to do a little this or that. So I'm going to show you a picture of two people, and you point to the one that you think looks the most professional or would be the most acceptable for courtroom etiquette. So here we have two pictures. One is of a lady with a hat on, and the other is of a lady that's dressed pretty professionally. So which one would you say is acceptable? Of course, we're going to go with the woman that's dressed pretty professionally. You never want to wear a hat in the courtroom, ever. Even if it's really cute, really stylish, even if your whole outfit is really, really professional, you do not want to wear hats. You want to refrain from hats in the courtroom. You don't want to have anything on your head unless it's for religious purposes. So if you're Jewish and you have something on your head, or if you are a Muslim and you have a head guard on. Aside from that, you never, ever, ever want to wear anything on your head in the courtroom. It is never acceptable. So now, let's take a look at these two ladies. One has on jeans, the other does not. Which is acceptable? Are either of them acceptable? So neither of them are acceptable. Not the one with the jeans, and also not the one with the open-toe sandals and the blouse and the pants on. Of course, she would be a little bit more acceptable. However, neither of them are dressed in business professional clothing. You must be dressed in business professional clothing to show the judge and to show the court that you are serious about your appearance. You took some time out and you really thought your outfit through, and you showed up today looking like you are ready and you take this seriously enough to hopefully have things go in your favor. So let's take a look at these two guys. One has on a polo, the other has on a suit. You may say that both of them are acceptable, but which is more acceptable? Of course, the man with the suit on. We always want to go as professional as possible. The polo's okay. One rule of thumb is to make sure that your shirts are always tucked Make sure you always have your shirt tucked in and you look nice and clean cut. Haircut or hair groomed if you have longer hair. You want to look fresh, you want to look clean cut, and you want to look prepared. So the polo's okay, but if we have the option between the two, of course we're going to go with the suit. Now here's a picture of two men, both with suits on. So which would you say is more acceptable? It's the man with the suit that doesn't have all the buttons buttoned. And I know that this is nitpicky, but sometimes people pay attention to things like that. Of course, both of them are acceptable. However, when you're dressing in a suit, it's typically not acceptable to have all three of your buttons buttoned down. You want to have at least one of the buttons open. So you button the top two, leave the bottom open, or maybe just button the middle button. Or wear it open depending on the type of shirt that you have on under your suit jacket. But for the most part, don't button all three buttons of your suit. Now, let's talk hair. We of course want to express ourselves, but there is a time and a place for everything. We want to make sure that we are well groomed, clean cut, respectful of the court, and that nothing is a distraction. So if I have a pink hair, a pink wig on that's kind of frizzy and all over the place, that may be a distraction to really understanding my claim and my case and what I have going on, especially if it's a jury trial. They may be more obsessed with what I have going on in my hair than, you know, what I'm saying to the court. So you always want to make sure that you wear neutral colors and that you're not standing out too much as to be a distraction to what's going on with the court. Same thing with your nails. If I have nails on, especially since I'm a musician, or sometimes you get nervous and jittery, you could have your nails making noise on that table while you're sitting there just to do something that you're not even realizing that you're making noise, but it's a distraction to the court. So you want to make sure you minimize all distractions so that we can come and be serious about why we're there and handle the business at hand. Lastly, when talking to the judge, you always want to make sure that you stand and respond with "Your Honor," "Yes, Your Honor," "Thank you, Your Honor," "Thank you, Judge," whatever the case may be. But you always want to acknowledge and reverence the judge in the position where the judge sits. You never want to say yes or thank you or say nothing at all. You always want to make sure that you acknowledge the judge in their reverence, in their authority, and say "Your Honor." And then again, always stand unless you've been given permission to sit, which is very rare when speaking to the judge. You just always want to stand. That's a show of respect. And always say "Thank you, Your Honor," after you finish whatever it is that you've stated. Whether you are a guest in the courtroom or a party to the case, you want to make sure that you are respectful of the courtroom. So let's recap. No phones, no food, no drinks, no chewing gum, no noise, no distractions, anything that could possibly distract the court. Revisit it, think twice, and don't bring it into the courtroom. Always dress as professionally as possible and do your best. Show respect to the court and show respect to yourself by being serious about the matter at hand. I hope this was very helpful for you guys today and that you learned quite a bit about the courtroom, courtroom etiquette, the people that are in the courtroom, and that this is helpful for you and your future. Thank you so much.